Welcome, everybody. My name is Mark Shinesk. I am Senior Application Engineer, an Assistant Professional Services Manager at Seiler Design Solutions and Seiler GeoDrones. And in this webinar, we are going to talk about mastering UAV data in Autodesk Civil 3D and ReCap Pro. There we go. And then, so we're going to go through this webinar. So today's webinar, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, sorry about that. We're just moving along here. All right. So the agenda today, after a little brief introduction, we're going to talk about point cloud sources and processing choices. We're going to introduce you to Autodesk ReCap Pro. Just one second. Eric, I think you're on voice or something. Could you please mute your mic? Processing data in ReCap Pro, Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs, feature extraction in Autodesk Docs, and moving data into Civil 3D. Okay, so a little bit about ourselves. For those of you who know us and maybe not know us, Seiler Design Solutions and GeoDrones are part of Seiler Instrument, a family-owned firm established in 1945 in the survey and optical microscope equipment manufacturing. We have offices throughout the Midwest with our corporate headquarters located in St. Louis. We're industry leaders providing customers innovative solutions with knowledgeable support in geospatial, engineering, architecture, surveying, construction, fleet management, government, utilities, and GIS markets on our geospatial side. We're committed to supporting our clients and customers and are passionate about understanding your needs, challenges, and current technology goals. We are also a product partnership. You can see our products we represent. We are a triple authorized reseller as well as an Autodesk Gold partner with partners with Bluebeam, as well as several manufacturers in the UAV and UAV processing software. So you can see the products that we represent on there as well. All right, so just a little introduction. I'm not going to do a lot of PowerPoint slides. We're going to kind of cover a few slides here, and then I'm going to do some hands-on demonstrations. So the whole purpose of this webinar is to talk about point cloud processing. Now, I'm going to focus on data that was collected with photogrammetry in UAV world, but this workflow can be used with any kind of point cloud data set, which could be from static scan, mobile mapping LiDAR, or even handheld SLAM LiDAR, being able to process in there. We know you have a lot of choices out there when it comes to processing data. You know, as a Pix4D reseller, we have Pix4D surveys, a Trimble Business Center reseller we can use and do data in Trimble Business Center. Today's focus is going to be on the products that are available to you from Autodesk that you may not know you already have that are part of the AEC collection. So before we really get into this, I do have a few little poll questions I'm going to ask here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. I just want to see where the customers lie. So I'm going to open this poll here. You can go ahead and answer if you feel like. Just let us know if you're currently using a subscription to the Autodesk AEC collection. Okay, so all the products I'm going to show today are part of the AEC collection. If you're just using Civil 3D or AutoCAD, consider, if you want to learn more about the AEC collection, please contact us. We can put together a demonstration for you. All right, we're going to go ahead and give this just a few more seconds. I can kind of see the poll results just kind of coming up there. Okay. Okay. That should be good. We're going to go ahead and close that. It gives me an idea. All right, and I can share that poll. So you can see that about 74% of you, 75, about 3/4 of you are using the AEC collection on the Autodesk side. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead. I got a couple more polls. For those of you who have the AEC collection, are you currently using Autodesk ReCap Pro as part of your current point cloud processing? That's kind of the results I would expect. Yeah, a little more on the no side, a little less on the yes side. For those of you, this is, I will be honest, this isn't my first choice in processing. It's not because I'm a big fan of Autodesk products. We know that there are specialized choices out there, but they are additional subscription costs that are are required for these, and so not everybody has that choice. Or maybe you're just testing the water with point cloud processing and want to utilize what you have already. We understand that. Okay, that should be good. We'll go ahead and close that and share. So we can see, not quite 50-50. It's a little more people using other products and not using ReCap, or maybe you don't know that ReCap is going to be there available for you. So we'll kind of show you that as well. All right, one last poll question here very quickly, because part of this processing is going to be using the Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs. How familiar are you familiar with Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs? I'm not going to ask if you're using it already. I'm assuming if you're aware of it, you are probably using it already. Okay, good. Yeah, this is interesting. So we're going to show this as well. So what I'm going to show is some of the cloud-based processing available to you, and it is part of the processing workflow, and it is also part of that AEC collection license. We'll go ahead and share those results really quick to kind of show you where people are on that one. All right, very good. Then we're done with that. I'm going to go done with the polls now. Let's continue on with the processing. So let's talk about point cloud sources and processing workflows. Oops. All right. So, oops, did I go fast? I went too fast. Let's go back a few. Sorry about that. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Oops, got ahead of myself. There we go. There we go. So typical point cloud sources are going to be either from photogrammetry or LiDAR. LiDAR, photogrammetry, of course, is geospatially oriented models created from aerial or ground-based photos. There are a variety of software available for processing that. So Autodesk does have a photogrammetry processing software, but it is very black boxy, and there aren't a lot of choices in that. We do recommend specific, if you're a Trimble Business Center user, there is the photogrammetry module for that, or Pix40matic, or there's a dozen choices you can have in processing that data. Data that you're going to get out of that are going to be things like the point cloud, as well as an orthomosaic photo that you can use for CAD background stuff. It can be used to extract 3D point data, as well as DEM model data and mesh data. LiDAR, on the other hand, is precision mapping using laser pulses to measure distances at thousands times a second. And it requires proprietary software to process based on manufacturer. But from that, you are also going to get a 3D point cloud in that same LAS or same point cloud format that you would get from photogrammetry, but a little different results. We're going to be able to get some penetration through leaves and trees to the ground, things that we're not going to get from photogrammetry. Historically, though, one of the things you're not going to get from LiDAR is an orthomosaic photo. So there's not going to have that background photography. You will have to supplement that with additional photography. The typical workflow we're going to use for today, we're going to be able to capture the data and start our initial processing. So that's going to be the proprietary or the photogrammetry software. From there, we're going to import that into Autodesk ReCap Pro. So Autodesk ReCap Pro is Autodesk's point cloud processing software. In order for you to import these point clouds into things like Civil 3D, Map 3D, Revit, or any of the Autodesk vertical software in the AEC collection, you must run it through ReCap. Autodesk removed the ability to directly import LAS files into Civil 3D back in about 2018. Even then, it was kind of like you could get a DEM. Everything was converted to a digital elevation model and extracted from there. Now with ReCap, we can bring that point cloud directly into Civil 3D if we want to, and be able to use that as a background reference, or things like Autodesk InfraWorks or Revit to be able to model buildings off of. But we have to touch upon that ReCap Pro. Since 2024, late 2024 version and the current 2025 version, they have also introduced the ability to have additional data cleanup and point cloud classifications. Historically, Autodesk ReCap had the ability to classify, you can't see my fingers, but they're air quotes, to be able to classify that data into what they called regions. Okay, it was a way to basically layer out your point clouds into points. Now we actually have our ability to follow the standard ASPRS classifications, at least the first dozen of them, point class 2 ground, class 0 unclassified, never classified, class 5 buildings, etc. So that ability is in there. They have also introduced an automatic, well, a semi-automated ground classification utility into ReCap Pro. Uh, and the decimation. So another problem we've had with running ReCap products directly in the Civil 3D is trying to make a surface model out of 40 million points or 400 million points. And one, I think the largest complaint I used to hear was that it was very popcorny. It looked very, very, very noisy, and it is. The last thing you want to do is try to make a point cloud out of your 400 or 40 million points, or even 4 million points, way too many. So a typical workflow processing, either from TBC, Pix4D survey, or virtual survey, is to decimate that point cloud out. Hey, out of my 4 million points, I'm going to take an average of maybe 1,500 points or 4,000 points scattered throughout the site. I mean, think of it, when you're out in the field surveying with traditional rover or total station, you're not picking a point every 1 centimeter square. You're doing a 25 by 25 grid or a 10 by 10 grid, or you're running down line work every 10 to 25 feet. You're getting a representative sample of that. And that's kind of what we're doing with this point cloud data. We are taking the virtual outside world and we're bringing it into our computer to do our data collection and survey on the screen. Once we've decimated the points, then we're going to be uploading it to Autodesk Docs into the cloud. So using that Autodesk Docs website, we'll kind of work through that. And Autodesk Docs is where Autodesk's feature extraction tools lie. So they're using AI to help assist with this data extraction of curb lines and sidewalk lines and help you place points properly inside your drawing or inside your point cloud model to pull that out. And we can export that data out as either land XML or DXF file, or points as a CSV file to dump into Civil 3D to create our model. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to run through with this. So the first step we're going to talk about here is the Autodesk ReCap Pro. So Autodesk ReCap Pro is part of the Autodesk AEC collection. Now you can get Autodesk ReCap free if you're not a subscriber to the Autodesk AEC collection. You can go onto Autodesk's website, just Google ReCap. You can download the Pro version with a 30-day trial. Once that's complete, it will revert back to the free version. So you'll lose some of the functionality of that. But for the most part, you can test it out if you're not. Now, if you're already a member or already subscribed to the AEC collection, it's just there. Go to your manage.autodesk.com website, wherever you manage and download your software. You'll see it there in the list, and you'll be able to install that. You can import a variety of software types. Not only can you import common LAS and LAZ data, but PTS, PTX, some Faro scan formats. There are a variety of different types of XYZ, a variety of different formats you can import into Autodesk. Autodesk creates a RCP file and an RCS scan. It converts it to its own format to be able to use into the software. We can visualize, analyze, clean up, classify, manipulate point cloud data for use in most Autodesk design software. Autodesk Civil 3D, Revit, Inventor, Fusion, all sorts of AutoCAD, MEP, or architecture. Upload and open data from the Autodesk Construction Cloud via Autodesk Docs. Okay. So the processing we're going to go through is we're going to import the data, import a variety of data, transform any geospatial data to other coordinate systems as required. So sometimes we're going to get data that's going to be from a LiDAR scan, and it's going to be in a UTM metric format. Well, we're going to use this to transform it to state plane coordinate system, whatever, US feet, international feet, keep it in meters, whatever. The point cloud will do the transformation in there, so it's as long as it's in a common data. Transform geospatial data, other coordinate systems, and automatic and manual registration options are available. Then we're going to classify. So we're going to run that automatic ground classification utility. We'll walk through some details on what to do, what not to do with that, or we can manually classify points as necessary. We'll show you some tools that we can use for that. And then we can decimate that. After we do the classification, we're going to subsample that ground data to make model key points. And we can take it by percentage, or we can just type in the total number of points in there and use to create lightweight lightweight, I should have spelled that right, surfaces in Civil 3D without the overuse of redundant data. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint here real quick, and I'm going to go through a generic workflow that I would use for this data. So I have Autodesk ReCap Pro opened up here. I'm going to use a data set it's a tried and true data set from our Franklin, Wisconsin office. It was the head of our GeoDrones area. That's where it's probably the most flown site in pretty much all of North America, I'd say at this point. Tested, good testing grounds for all of our drones. So we have a data set here. I'm going to go ahead the workflow. So this is your interface to ReCap Pro. You got a big blue button here that says new project. So we're always going to create a new project. When you create a project in ReCap, it's going to create a RCP file. That is a ReCap project file, and it's going to create a support folder of the same name. Inside of that support folder is where the real scan data lies. So if you're going to run this and you want to share this data out and you hand somebody an RCP file and say, here you go, they can't do anything with it unless they have the support folder that goes with it, because the project is just an index of these different scans, and it could be more than one. I can import a dozen different scans around a site from different station points or different modes of collection and put it all together into a combined point cloud that's built up of several different files that's all indexed and controlled by that RCP. So in this case, I just said, hey, new project. I'm going to import a point cloud. I'm not going to save my changes because I started an old one. So I'm just going to do, this is the, I'm going to say webinar project. I'm not going to go through a whole lot because just to save time, there is a time constraint on this. Webinar project, and then I choose a folder where I want to save that, either a desktop or, hey, I can even choose, a Dropbox site or whatever. Just, you're going to have a site, typically going to be your project folder where it's going to save that. Select your folder, proceed, and then it creates the file. The file's ready to go. All I have to do is either drag or drop an LAS file, which I have one right here. I could just say, hey, I'm going to drag, oops, recap, get that back there. I'm going to drag that LAS file into my project. Right there, it's going to say, hey, I can do some clipping on it. I can go to the advanced folder. This is where I can change target coordinate systems. So I know this was done in, Wisconsin 83, oops, NAT 83, Wisconsin, State Plains, South US foot, but maybe I want to convert it to Milwaukee County system or something like that. I can do that and tag that coordinate system in here. Different if the software that I used to create the point cloud had put that coordinate system header in it, like something like DJI Terra will do that. If I bring that point cloud in from there, the coordinate system would already be introduced here, and I can do the conversion at that time. If you're going to stay within the same coordinate system, there's absolutely no need to set a coordinate system in here unless you're going to transform it. I can also perform a decimation of those points right off the top of my head. Do I really need 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters? Maybe I just need a 4-inch by 4-inch or up to 100 millimeters square, and then clean out some data. I usually decimate down to an even 10 or 5 just to make it a little lighter weight, yet still gives me enough detail to pull top of curve, back of curve lines off, etc. And then all I do is say import. Now I'm going to skip that because what it's going to do is it's going to take that LAS file and it's going to convert it line by line to an RCS file and put it in that folder. So I'm going to cancel that import and just go to the, this is the Julia Childs version. Once it's done and it brings that point cloud in, I've converted that LAS into an RCP file. All right, it's a very easy interface to use. Right mouse button lets me orbit around, mouse zoom in, and then I can pan around and select by the middle mouse button. All right. I have very easy menus to use. You just pop the menus out. Typical items like save, open, undo, redo. Here are the point cloud tools that I'll be using for decimating and uploading. So those are there, as well as exporting. The other nice thing about Autodesk ReCap is that it is what you see is what you get. Okay, it's a visual style type of program. Speaking of styles, I can look at that point cloud in this by, RGB, which is what I'm looking at from photogrammetry, elevation, model modes, intensity modes, which for photogrammetry, there's no intensity values for photogrammetry. I don't have a LiDAR system in here, LiDAR point cloud, but different LiDAR values reflect different amounts of light back to the sensor. But photogrammetry is a passive light system, so you're always going to get zero intensity out of there. Normals, scan location, and classification. So right now, the classification is new, and everything's classified as class 0 unclassified. We can also put on some artificial lighting, so we can apply some like hill shading effects to it. So if we are in a monocolor, we can kind of get some shadows on that and kind of get an idea of what the point cloud looks like, even if regardless of what color that we're in here. I have the ability to change the point display size and various visualization options on there. ReCap, let me go back to an RGB mode. ReCap Pro also has some great measuring tools. So even if I was just to take this point cloud, save it, and pass it on to my design team or architectural team to be able to just take measurements off there, I can very easily just say, get some distances. I want to make sure these parking stalls are standard length, or standard. They meet the city standards. I can take some measurements in here, and these become permanent annotations that I can export out as files elsewhere as well. There's some ortho animation measurements. Hey, I want to know how tall the building is, so I can take a height. It's always going to measure either Z, or I can change the axes that I want to measure to. It's got some additional measurement tools, and I have the ability to clip the data and select the data. So I have a great window here, either window, fence, or planar selection to select data, and I can clip data outside. So I can foreshorten the amount of data that I have. Again, because ReCap is a what you see is what you get, if I was to export out what I see on the screen, I get a brand new model that's just that, and it's a lighter weight. And so that's what I did for this one. Let me unclip here really quick. The clipping doesn't delete it. It's just like a layering system. I went ahead and I'm just for the sake of the demo, I shortened this up and I just picked a subsection of it. So I drew a window around my point cloud, and I used the clip outside tool to make a smaller data set, something that's a little easier to manage on a webinar, an hour-long webinar. Come up here, go to the export tool, and this lets me export this out and give it a new name. And it'll ask you, hey, are you ready to go? Are you sure you want to get this? Yes. What I see is what I get. And that's going to be what I get out of this. So I'm going to skip ahead to the next file. Don't save. So I've already clipped this out. There's the clip tool. So this is all I've got. There's nothing left to clip. I've made a brand new model that is lighter weight and ready to go. So the first thing I would do with this model, if I'm going to do and create some topo out of this and extract some data, I'm going to kind of look in on this. Yep, I got good data. Your data for a point cloud is only going to be as good as the quality of the scan. Garbage in, garbage out. You can't make magic out of nothing. So good quality scan data is going to make or break your ability. And this is, while it's really good data, aerial data can have some difficulties. You especially with curb lines, you're going to want to make sure your scan data is either maybe oblique on curb lines or maybe static data that gets those face of curbs and gutters, because any kind of shadows could impact, and it will. You'll see when I do some extraction, I have some problem areas that I had to kind of guess or estimate, where it is. And I may have to go out and supplement that with traditional survey data or rescan certain areas to get that. So don't be surprised if it doesn't work. Even with some of the best software, I have that issue. Right. So the first thing I'm going to do out of the box once I get this is, all right, I need to separate the wheat from the chaff. I need to ground classify this. So Autodesk ReCap Pro has a automatic ground classification tool. And there's some presets on here. I don't really recommend using the presets. There's an optimum of more detail and less detail. Well, those are kind of nebulous terms. I don't know what they mean. So I typically always go custom. And the way the custom details work are you have two variables you can change: the ground details and the processing window size. The processing window size is the size of chunks it uses for guesstimating what's ground and not ground. Typically, this number is going to be the same as the diagonal of your largest flat roofed building. So I went ahead and I used the distance tool and I got a measurement of the office building here. Oops, not Z, back to freehand. And it was about 708 feet. Okay, so that's the number. When I'm going to use my automated processing, get done with that measurement, I'm going to put in my custom 108, maybe 110 feet, a little bit bigger than my tallest measurement. Now you have to be careful of this number. If you go too large, then it won't extract trees. It will keep trees in, and it does some weird things when it comes to trees and ground. So there's a fine line, and you may have to do this a couple times to get an idea of what works best for each site. The ground details, anything, this is the largest item that can still be considered if the 3D object that will not be pulled out of ground, or so the smaller the ground details are, the more finite items that might pull into the ground or out of the ground. And this is also a number. That's set to be 1 meter right now. I kind of leave it at that. That will make the difference of whether something like this pad ends up in the ground or not the ground. All right. And then all you do is hit start processing. And once you're done, again, it takes a couple seconds. I'm just going to go ahead and open that one. So I got a ground class RCP, and it's done. You could tell when I go here to my visualization and come down to classification, the orange area or brown area has been classified out as ground. It has left everything out. This is a very common algorithm used by a lot of different softwares to extract that. Let me turn on some lighting so you can kind of see that hill shading, and you can see the kind of items. Now, if you get an item that is not classified properly, you can go ahead. It's like I got a mound, or I got something over here that's a low-level shrub that I don't think that's ground. I can go ahead and just manually select items that I don't want ground, hit the classification button, and I can choose the classification that I want to move it to. It's kind of hard to select things though. If I wanted to, let's say, move this shrub over to like a vegetation or something like that, I have to be careful when I choose that item to move it. You can see that I am also getting the ground underneath of it. So there's a fine, you got to kind of get in an angle where you're not selecting everything. So what we do here is ReCap has this limit box. Let me go ahead and set this limit box. I'm gonna wait for my screen to catch up there. It's putting a lot of strain on my process here. So I'm going to hit the limit box, and I can go ahead and pick that tree. And what it does is it puts a little rectangle, a little cube around that area. It helps me isolate that. And then I can drag these sides out to make sure that I've isolated the object that I wanted to classify. And I can do this with buildings, or I can do this with trees, and I'm going to bring it up a little bit. So that should be pretty good. When I say confirm, I've now isolated that tree from everything else. Now I can just go ahead and do a wide swath selection of that tree, make sure that it is there, and then I can say classification, and maybe I'm going to classify that as medium height vegetation. I'll assign that classification to it. Then I'll come back, clear my selection, and then reset my limit box, and I can see that that point has now been classified, or those points have been classified under that. And I can manually go through and classify other items as I see fit, or clean up data here and there. All right, so that's your classification, your ground classification. We're almost done with our recap journey. At this point, the last thing I'm going to do is, again, I can export this out and I can come here to my layering system. So Autodesk ReCap has a layering system available to it. And then I can come here and then expand on my classifications, and I can turn off any of those classified items and only visualize what I see. So if I wanted to export a brand new point cloud that was just the ground only, again, with our what you see is what you get, I can come up here and say export out, and then I can make a new recap exported file that's just that ground. And if I opened it up, there would be no other unclassified or tree items in there or vegetation items in there. But again, it's not what I want. I can bring this into Civil 3D and import that in, but then I'm stuck with, I don't know how many million points. I think at this point there's like 40 something million points in here. It's still too much, and it's still a little bit too noisy in areas to make an accurate surface. So what I'm going to do is run Autodesk's point decimation utility. And what that do is we'll subsample that ground data out and let me say, and move them to a key point area. And I can do that by percentage. Maybe 1% is enough. I'll be honest with you, you want to make this as light as possible. The number that you choose, so you can do it by percentage, but to me, that's still going to be too many points. I like to pick the number of points. So when I click the approximate number of points, I can see here, hey, there's still 2.6 million, 2.7 million points in this point cloud here. Maybe I only want 1,500 points out of that. Why did I choose 1,500? Well, I kind of go like 0.1% or less of the points that I want to deal with. Again, in the field, you'd be doing a 25 by 25 foot survey or data collection. So you kind of make that estimation in your head. I still think 1,500 points is way too many. I ran it and I still had to do some cleanup on it, but it was better than 2.7 million. All right. All I do is hit the decimate button and it moves those points from ground to, so here it moved 1,486 points to model key points. So now I have a new layer that I can play with model key points. I'll turn off the ground, and now I can see these pink points. Kind of hard to see. I'll turn up the point display so you can see them. They'll really pop out. So now I have this lighter weight point cloud made up of these model key points. With everything else turned off, this is what I export. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to export this out as a new point cloud specifically to import in Civil 3D. This is the point cloud I'm going to import into Civil 3D to create my lightweight surface. All right, that's the first step. Classifying, pulling your data out from your ground, creating your model key points, bringing that into Civil 3D and making a surface out of that in Civil 3D. That will get you the ground basic data. We are going to supplement that with additional extracted data to bring those details back in, like top of curb, back of curb, gutter lines, key points, control points, etc. We're going to use a different routine for that. So I'm going to switch back over here to the PowerPoint here really quick. So the next step is the Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs. Autodesk Construction Cloud is Autodesk cloud-based collaborative design, construction, planning, and administrative software. It includes, and its base function is Autodesk Docs. Docs is the foundation tool within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. It's similar to like Trimble Connect or Dropbox or your SharePoint, OneDrive. It is a cloud-based file storage, but also visualization and markup tool. You can input drawings, PDFs, Word documents, Excel documents, and recap models, as well as InfraWorks models, Revit models. And when you get them up there, you can have a file folder system, invite members in, assign permissions, view or edit permissions. So it's very, very quick and very easy to share data, but yet lock it down and keep it secure and keep it the eyes on it as needed, while protecting sensitive data from people who don't need to see that. Okay, the Autodesk Docs is part of the AEC collection. Secure cloud-based storage, access and editing permission levels, synchronized data between multiple PCs and cloud. There's an additional tool you would install called the Autodesk Desktop Connector. It acts as a conduit with the file system on your computer to the file system for the project in the cloud. Okay, there are FedRAMP options available for government institutions as well. So if you're a government agency, city, municipality, state, or federal government, and you want to be able to use this services, the FedRAMP options will limit the amount of sharing that can be done. There's no external exports allowed. There's some limitations on it, but still maintaining that functionality with design collaboration among multiple offices because of that permission-based system. Let's see. Next slide. So the Autodesk Docs-based feature extraction. So Autodesk has moved their feature extraction. When they originally created Point Cloud feature extraction, they put those tools inside Autodesk InfraWorks. And they're still there by and large. You can just go ahead to Autodesk InfraWorks, import your Point Cloud, and do some feature extraction in there. But it was kind of basic, and it was, it didn't enjoy this new surge that we have with AI and assistance. So in about mid 2024, Autodesk started introducing the ability to load your recap files into the Point Cloud and visualize them there. And then they've moved this extraction data tools into that software. And we can upload directly from recap. We create a project in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. We export our Point Cloud up into the Point Cloud or into the AC Construction Cloud, and then we can visualize on any web browser and do our extraction there. From there, we extract line work, semi-automated point and linear extraction, including a curve tool. If those of you who run TBC and the Trimble Business Center curve line extraction, you're going to immediately look at that and go, oh yeah, I know how that works. Create custom templates for use in projects, and then add custom schema data to extracted objects. So I can add line codes and feature codes for points. I can add, description keys, in Civil 3D to match my feature codes coming out of there. And just like the survey database, I can import those points and see my symbology come out using that data. So export to Civil 3D as line data as a DXF or land XML. I got a little caveat for the land XML for those who have tried it and noticed something. I'm going to point that out. Point data as CSV for importing as Kogo points in Civil 3D. So I'm going to, again, stop the PowerPoint. We're going to go in here. So yeah, so once again, I'm going to go back to my full model, turn on everything back to where it was, show that back in a RGB color. And then from here, I'm going to pull my point display back down. I'm going to come here and say, hey, I'm going to upload this to the cloud. Well, I already did one day ago. So there's this publish to the cloud. So let's discuss the Autodesk Construction Cloud very briefly. The ACC is part of the Autodesk Docs, which is part of the Construction Cloud, is part of your AEC collection. And there's one account admin. The account admin can create additional members as account admins, or they can remain the sole account admin, and only account admin can create projects. So we have several projects that we have available. I've created one for our webinar here, and I am the only member of it this time, but I can definitely invite other members in there. So once that's done, the project admin gets to add members, add company permissions. So if I invite stakeholders from other companies in to share in the data, I can give them different permission levels based upon company or role or additional access levels. So every member that I bring in an invite, I can give them permission levels all over. I can bridge projects across multiple projects, and then there are other various settings. But as part of that project creation is the docs. So I've activated docs on here. This is my file storage area. And in my file set, I just create files and folders as if I was doing it on a web server or a regular server at my company. I can easily just create create subfolders, give it a name, documents, and then as I bring members in, I can assign them permission levels. So, I have, as the project manager for this project, I automatically get full permissions on there. But if I add additional users on there, let me add one in here. So I'll come back to project admin. I'm going to add a member. I have a add members. I have a member here that I add. It's one of our training, a CAD training, no, ADESK training 01 at Siler Ints. There we go. I'm going to enter that person and send that person an invitation. Okay, he's already an Autodesk account. And then once that member comes in, then I can go ahead and say, hey, for this permission level, I'm going to give this user, maybe I'll go ahead and add that person. Set permission level. I'm going to give him the ability to view only. So I can invite somebody in to say, this person would say, get into this job. They're going to log into this, and they can only view documents. They can't actually edit those. And later on, and it's a priority base. So if I gave that person, permission settings, ADES, let me get it again. Permission level. If I get him full edit capability at the root level, that person automatically gets that level at all other subfolders down there. Okay. Here's a question here right off the bat, and I'll answer as questions come up. I see one in there. I will answer them towards the end. I'll have a few minutes here to answer them. I gotta bring that out so I can see that. All right. So once that's done, I've uploaded some stuff. I also have the Autodesk Desktop connector installed, so that is another piece of the puzzle, and that acts as a conduit between my desktop. So I have this folder, I have this project in the cloud with the web browser. I have these folders that I've created on the web. In my PC, I have an Autodesk Docs folder that's brought to me by the desktop connector. There's the project I'm a member of, and then there are the folders. So you can see the folders here match the folders that I see here. Anything that I just sneak in and drop into this folder will automatically trickle up into the browser. Or I can just upload directly to the browser and they will trickle back to my desktop. I don't have to have, so I don't think that, hey, if somebody else in my project team uploads a terabyte of data, that it's going to come down to my computer. It isn't. Only when I access it will it be there. So part of what I've done with uploading it here, I'm going to go ahead into that ReCap Pro project. I can go ahead as part of this desktop is to view the data. So I'm going to open up the ReCap point cloud that I uploaded. Okay, let's go back to this one. I know I've done this one. I may not have uploaded it all the way. As part of the ReCap viewer, I have the full point cloud available to me on the website here. So without having ReCap, even if I sent this to a C-suite level a member of my company and they had access, they didn't have ReCap installed, they can still open up their web browser and view and surround. Okay, and as part of the tool space available is to be able to visualize this again as intensity, as an elevation map, shading mode, normal map, or RGB color. We could turn on and off iDome lighting, change the lighting strength, and change dynamic point scaling. But more importantly, Autodesk has brought in their point cloud processing and extraction tools in this program. So I'm going to kind of show you those very briefly. I've already run that on this. So there's measurement tools in here, just like I saw in regular ReCap. You can measure between objects, make those, as soon as that gives me, there we go. Zoom in here a little bit. There we go. So I got measurement tools in here. There we go. Measure. here to here, and then I can keep those measurements or I can extract those out as well. They become permanent parts. But Autodesk has also brought in their extraction tools in here. So as you can see, I already have some line work that I've extracted from the curb and gutter in here. Their extraction features, let's see if I can run on this curb line over here, one that is fresh. So the extraction routine, when I run the extraction routine in here, I can extract linear features, I can extract 3D lines, driveways, or just regular polylines, like drawing a 3D polyline on the back of there, or I can extract a variety of points. There comes with several schema libraries built into there. So for like points, I can assign things like bench, bollard, bus stops, cabinets, gate posts, fire hydrants, your typical data collection point features. Or I can give it a title, I can choose an arbitrary color for it based upon what I see here, and I can apply a feature code, and I can apply a description. Very key points when it comes to exporting this out as a CSV file, point northing, easting, elevation, description for running into my descriptor key in Civil 3D. Okay, for both lines and for oops, I'm running out of resolution for both lines and for point values. So to extract the data here, I'm going to run a very basic curb extraction tool here. I've created some standard curb shapes. So you can create basically a cross section. If I run the default cross section tool, I'm going to go ahead and hit default. You're going to assign a direction. Again, if you're running TBC, this should be familiar to you, where you're just going to go ahead and run and set up your typical section. Okay, it's a pretty bad section. Let's go to a little cleaner section. There we go. Again, it's only as good as the data. So if it's a noisy data, you may end up getting some nebulous data, but it's going to help you, when you have a better data set. Lower and slower, again, for curb and gutter, you want to make sure you fly it with some oblique photography, right? You're going to make a settings for your alignment algorithm threshold. So as part of the AI, it's going to check as it extracts how close it is to the original section. I can choose the step interval, 1, 2, 10 meters, down to 0.1 meter, and then the cross-section depth. The thinner your depth, the better your model is going to be, but you're limited down to 0.3 meters, which is about 1 foot. I can either then at this point manually extract by pressing the plus button, and it goes ahead and it tries to continue finding those, or I can press the play button. So if it reaches a point where it doesn't match, so here I'm outside of my, or I can stop it, I can rearrange it, and then I can tell it to continue. And it's going to go through and start its extraction routine. Once it reaches some spurious data, like I have this tree, I'm going to stop it. Maybe I'll manually extract it and manually modify it as I see fit. Okay, that looks okay. That looks okay. I should be able to press play again and continue on. Stop, fix. So it's going to take a little bit. Again, the better data you have, the better it's going to continue to extract. But you kind of get the idea. Now, this one is this curve I was able to run. You're going to have mixed success. I ran this curve. I ran the entire thing in one run right up to about here. When you're going to get to curves, you're going to change your, let's get this done. You're going to change your, let me go to features, curve and gutter 1, 2, let's get to here, here, here. There we go. I had to change my frequency down to like more like a tenth of a meter or 3/10 of a meter. And even then, again, it's only as good as your point cloud data. So I didn't have a cleaner point cloud at the time when I was running this, changing computers around. So with what I've got, I really probably could have gotten better with a denser LiDAR on that. But you might not get 100%. But in areas where you do have some areas where it's going to be kind of nebulous, you're going to have to go through, probably go back and collect some data manually or refly that portion of it. But Besides that, discard changes. Yes, I'm going to change that change. I can also create just manual lines. So, I can come here to the 3D portion of it and I can just draw, line to line. And then, that becomes a line that acts on the point cloud that I can extract as well. So I did the back of sidewalk here as a line. I did a majority of the building. I wasn't able to get all the building, but enough of the faces that I can come through and continue those off. Curve lines. Now where point data comes, point data, let's get I've already done the points. When you're extracting point data from here, you would go ahead and say, you're going to choose my feature class here, click it, and then I'm going to click on the ground next to this light pole to set the elevation of that point, and then I'm going to slide that over in this view to center it as best I can into that center of it, and then done. And that becomes a point at the center of that base of that light pole. And so I extracted some light poles here, some trees, a sign, and a couple catch basins as pole data. So this is the extraction tools in here. Things like Trimble Business Center and Pix4D Survey and TopoDot. I mean, it's not up to TopoDot speed yet. I think they're very active in making this a better product. So expect big things with the next version that's coming out. And when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm done with all my features. I go ahead and I download them. So I can download all my point or my linear features either as a DXF file, land XML file, or for the points as a CSV file. And if I chose CSV, it'd be under point northern easting elevation description. So when I bring that to Civil 3D, they come in as Kogo points. Okay, so that's that on the recap side of it. Once I'm done, back to the PowerPoint very quickly. So Autodesk Civil 3D, of course, is Civil 3D engineering and survey design software based on AutoCAD, AutoCAD Map 3, and Civil 3D. Create existing condition drawing from point created in Autodesk ReCap Pro and Autodesk Construction Cloud, and then I can save the drawing back to the Autodesk Construction Cloud for visualization and sharing. All right, so the process here is to import my ReCap RCP, that model point, those decimated model points, create my surface using that points, then import the features extracted from the AEC, land XML DXF files, add those as break lines to refine the surface, and then finally import my CSV points that I extracted from the ACC. So I have Civil 3D open right here. The secret sauce that I can tell you, and then I'll do this very quickly. We'll take the last 5 minutes here to answer questions. The secret sauce, when you're bringing a recap file, I can attach a recap file into my Civil 3D as an XREF, but XREFs come in as I can set my settings here. This is in Wisconsin, so I can say, hey, I'm going to set my settings to Wisconsin State Plains 1983, Nat 83, South Zone US foot, right? But that doesn't help me with the recap file. I must set my units, AutoCAD plane units, to US survey feet, because I tell you, even in recap, when I say, hey, this is a US survey foot point scan, point cloud, it is in state plane south in US feet, it's still in meters in recap. And so when you bring that metric drawing or metric point cloud into a AutoCAD drawing or Civil 3D drawing, it's going to come in by default in international feet. So you'll get a scaling issue. Number one complaint I get, the number one question I get, hey, why isn't this coming in right? You must set your AutoCAD units to US survey feet. And then I'll say, hey, now I'm going to attach that lightweight point cloud. Boom, it falls right into place. I can turn on my geolocation, set my Bing mapping background to, OpenStreetMaps or something. You can see it falls right in that spot. Then I just select that point cloud because it's the lightweight model point cloud, and I'll say create surface from point cloud. Give it a surface name, e.g. point cloud. Give it a style, 1'5" background, and then no filter. It's already been filtered by ReCap. and then create surface and just let it go. The nice thing about the surface creation tool is it runs in background but I only have like 1,500 points. It should be done in about 15 seconds. All right, so I'm still going to get a point cloud. There's still some points here that I need to edit. There it is. So like I got a bad surface point there. That's fine. Once your surface is created, then I could just come through just like I would normally edit a surface, and I will go ahead and delete those points. By the way, if you haven't used Civil 3D 2025 and you're used to point cloud editing, in order to delete a point, I have to have points shown. Yeah, not anymore. They just automatically show up when I run the tool. So they're done. And then when I'm done editing those points out, I just exit the command and it takes me back to the original surface. So I had a few surface points to delete here. They didn't quite filter out, which is, it happens even with the best software. Sometimes it doesn't filter out. So I got rid of some of these extra points that were noise points per se, and just clean up that point cloud a little bit. There's a bunch of bushes and stuff here, so these are not real points in that. So you kind of have to know the site. But it's not as popcorny. We got a nice lightweight site. A couple more points to get rid of. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and say insert my land XML. So I exported all my features out as land XML files. Look at that. Boom. There are all my features I extracted. Let me turn off that background map so you can see them. Geolocation, map off. There's all the line work I extracted in ReCap Pro. Now I did a little bit of fixing using these are feature lines. So I can use the feature line edit tools right here to join these together, fill out my curves, join these two together, clean up some of these weird bumps and points by smoothing out some of those extractions that didn't quite come out right. I can use like the weed tool to fix that up. But then I bring that in and add that to my surface. So to jump to that, there is the finished surface. So I cleaned up those points a little bit and I added these to my surface as a break line. So if I select my surface here and I go to the object viewer, you can see now it's a cleaner surface. I actually have the curb line data in there. Would I do ADA and ramp design with this? No. I'm still going to need traditional survey. But if I'm doing this over a 10, 50, 20, 100 acre site with some drainage swales for a subdivision design or preliminary design or drainage all day long, it's accurate enough. All right, so that's the process, and then I imported the points. So you get your points. I set up a descriptor key set that matched the codes that came out of the settings that I set in the Construction Cloud, and I just imported that CSV file as a PNEZD file. And so there are all the trees and the light poles. I didn't put a right symbol for a light pole, but there's the sign I collected. There's all the trees I collected. They are COGO points at that point. At the right elevation. So everything is elevated appropriately and displayed on the surface. And that's it. Let me go through a little quick questions here. We got a few more minutes. So I see lots of questions here. Let me expand this out. Lost audio. What classification can be done on point clouds from the photogrammetry? It's just ground or not ground, but I can then manually classify things as I see fit: building, high vegetation, low vegetation, power poles, etc. There's also there's additional classes that are just unnamed that I could use for other items as well. Yeah, Julia Childs, I'm dating myself. Will TVC classification import the classification? Yes. If I take my point cloud into Trimble Business Center and run the automatic classification, because those are standard ASPRS classifications, if I bring that in a ReCap will honor those pre-classified points that Trimble Business Center did. Yes, the answer is yes. Question for the end, is there a way to reorientate UCS and ReCap? There is, but for geospatial data, you do not want to do that. And if you're going to try to transform over long distances, it doesn't work so well. But in ReCap, there is a tool here for updating and resetting the origin, and that's how you do it. You pick a 0 point, a north point, and then it will reorientate that way. But you will lose any geospatial identity. Okay. Can we assign an existing feature code library or description key to ReCap? No. There comes with some standardized symbols, but then you can tack onto that and make that a project template for future projects. The same thing happens with, just like anything else, you got to build it out once to meet your standards. But then it should be able to go. Are you able to change the units from metric to imperial? No, not in the cloud. The cloud is stuck in meters at this point. I don't think there's an option for it. That's not to say that there won't be one in the future, but that's up to Autodesk to implement that. Next question, is there a way to QC extracted line work, like advancing cross sections along the existing line? No, there isn't at this time. So yes, other software can do it. DGI, no, Pix4D Survey can, or Matic with its section view. Of course, Trimble Business Center can, but not. The only way you can do that would be in Civil 3D. You can have your point cloud. So I can, my point cloud's in here. If I turn my point cloud back on, you can, oh, that's my ortho. You can, you got to go to 3D wireframe. Let's go back to my top view. Zoom extends. I think I'd have to bring the full point cloud in, but I think I can create with my point cloud here. I can come and cut a section plane. It's not like a cross section. I can't project this. Oops, sorry, it's done. I can't project this point cloud into a cross section view with a sample line, but I can cut standard sections and maybe do a visualization. But there isn't a point to surface or point, a Kogo point. Like I would typically have some hard shots or control points, and I would do a point to cloud. I would do that in something like DJI Terra or something like that. No, I don't have a way to do that directly here. Again, this is an option. It's not my favorite or best option, but it is an option. Okay. Is there a snapping feature in ReCap to connect the new line work? No, there isn't really. It kind of, I don't think I found that. Maybe there is, and I'm just not seeing it, but I haven't seen it. There is in InfraWorks, funnily enough, but not in ReCap. Is there a way to blanket an area in points rather than just selecting individual points? This would be helpful for ground shots in a field and parking lot. I'm not sure I understand that one, Todd. Is there a way to blanket an area in points rather than just selecting individual points? Oh, I see. For the data collection, no. At that point, you would use the point cloud instead. So with that ReCap, you can import multiple ReCap files. So maybe for like this parking lot area, I did this decimation of model points. Maybe I do it again and make a more dense area for this and trim that out, and then bring that in. So you can have more points densified here, less points over here where you don't need it. There's just like civil service survey data, you can compound data with additional types of data to make a compound type of model, and that's the way I would do that. When using LiDAR data that is in UTM meters and converted to state plane, when I bring it into CAD, yep, so it still comes in meters, you have to scale. So the secret sauce is to set your AutoCAD units to US survey feet. Then when you bring that point cloud into Civil 3D, it will scale to US survey feet. I forgot to tell you, there is a caveat with bringing Land XML. These came in as international feet, and I had to take all my stuff and scale it up by a factor of 1.00002, so over 00. So I converted them to US survey feet. That if I brought them in as a DXF, they come right in the spot. I got a case with Autodesk to get that fixed. Is there a cost for the cloud processing? No. The cloud processing is no extra cost. It's part of your AEC collection. In Docs, how does the account admin add new admin? So to add a so that question's really easy to answer. Let me get out of this. When you are in the account admin, when you add users to your account, I can then say what's their access level. I can change and make them a project admin, account administrator. So you just invite them in, and then you say, make this person an account administrator. Poof, they get an email from Autodesk. Congratulations, you're an account administrator. But only account admins can create additional account admins. All right, so there is a hierarchy for that. Let's see. Perfect. Thank you, the UCS ReCap. You're welcome. What is my favorite option? My favorite option. I have two. I'm a big fan of Trimble Business Center. Trimble Business Center, I know it's an Autodesk webinar, but really has robust tool extraction tools now for what we have available. I'm also big on Pix4D survey. A lot of you who have taken some of my classes on drone processing, if we sell that as an option, I'm a big fan of that. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. No one tool does it all. We haven't quite reached there, so I usually reach for like 2 or 3 different tools when I'm extracting. That kind of answers those. More robust software. Blah, 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 yeah, so that would be that. Do you need BIM Collaborate Pro? You do not need BIM Collaborate. Speak that. You do not need BIM Collaborate Pro to do the feature extraction. It is part of Autodesk Docs. It's right there. The only time you need BIM Collaborate Pro is if you want to share survey database. So that allows you, so if you see I've uploaded, that allows you design collaboration for Civil 3D, which means data shortcuts, sheet set manager, and the survey database can be up on the cloud as well. That's what Design Collaborate Pro, as well as Revit Central Model sharing. You do not need Collaborate Pro for just the docs that comes with your AEC collection is good enough. Whoa, I think that answers all the question. Anything else? That's it. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I don't know, Eric, did you want to add anything else before we're done here, or anybody else?
No,
Otherwise,
Mark, you did a great job. Thank you.
All right, great. I believe this is being recorded, so expect a link for that. I don't know if there's going to be an exit poll. Thank you. Look forward to doing our next webinar. I won't keep you. We're about 7 minutes over. I appreciate everybody coming. I hope it was a little bit informative. It's an option available to you. Because it's the AEC collection, you can have, without having to spend multiple licenses on specialized software for smaller sites, you could just run it through. You have all the tools available to you with that. So thank you very much. Have a productive rest of the day, the rest of the week. For those, watch out for storms coming, and it's springtime. It's been a wild ride already. Thank you for coming. I look forward to the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.